How is I'm taking the Rona Ronicles, the Epic Voyages inside today. The car's getting fixed. It's getting the new starting motor, so we're breaking tradition for this one. And so there's also other things too. It's I didn't want wasn't planning to do one of these this week, but it's almost like when you see the restrictions that have come into England now, especially, and what's happening in Madrid. It's a while back there I thought it was over, but I now see I was probably wrong. And this is the problem. This is the issue that it is over. It is over. The problem is that the politicians don't have, the bureaucrats don't have, the mass media don't have an exit strategy to get out of this without looking like total wankers. Because by their own yardstick, they've been complete and total failures. If the masks worked, why were infection rates growing? Well, it's obvious why infection rates are growing. The reason why they're growing is because people are getting tested in enormous numbers. You can stop that by just stopping the testing. But this is all part of the secular nature of this. Is almost like a perpetual motion. Test as many people as possible, find as many cases that are COVID cases, 19 cases as possible. Then sex the numbers up in the media, and then add more restrictions. So then go back again, test the numbers again. All the hypochondriacs go, oh, we're in a second wave, but things are really bad, and all the terrified Indians get tested in mass numbers again, and then perpetual motion. It goes back, right, increased restrictions. Now, I've been talking enough about this, about the wherefore, all everything that's been going on. But there's certain things I want to talk about that I want to look. Just suppose you have believed the government to this point and are now realizing you were done. You're played for a mug. I'm not putting you down, okay? The propaganda was absolutely sensational from the start. The images of people dropping dead in the streets of China and being, zipped up in body bags, that's a real pandemic, okay? And coupled with that, the fact that we were getting whole stories earlier on about hospitals that were so many deaths in them that they were piled up along the walls because they couldn't put them in the morgue, and doctors and nurses dropping dead on the job, and so on. Now, I could understand like total people being terrified and freaked out by that and saying doing whatever they want. I don't want no one wants to bring home a deadly virus to their wife and kids or that kind of thing. And the people who are deemed essential had to go out there and do jobs like bin men and sanitation workers and anyone who was essential, production of food. A lot of them were quite rightly terrified they were going to bring it home to their families. And that was when they learned the weapon, the power of fear and all this. That's when they first learned that. And I'd like to address specifically the deaths of healthcare workers. Now, we had some absolute dickhead here in Ireland. He's quite well known. I forget his name, but he runs some kind of big tech conference here. And he slagged off Jim Core on Twitter, saying that 4 nurses had died, and you should be ashamed. The usual sort of sanctimonious, tut tut, how dare you, evil man, Jim Core kind of thing, and put him down. And the government had to make a press conference saying no healthcare workers had died on the job. None of them had died on the job. And but that was you could see by the reaction that guy got that the public had a hunger for this concept of healthcare workers dying on the job. And the spin doctors within the government, not just in the Irish government, your government too, fulfilled that need. Now, in Ireland, as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong because I'm not one of these people obsessively glued to the news to getting COVID numbers. But the healthcare workers that have all died here were all foreign nationals. I'm not aware of one Irish ethnic doctor or nurse who died on the job. We've seen, I can remember seeing people who had like either African or Middle Eastern names and dark complexion. So the assumption is they were not Irish, from Ireland or Irish ethnic thing, and and there was very little few details about them, and they were, but the usual, respected by colleagues, and then that was the end of it. Did these people? I have. Do we really? You'd imagine if these people died in Ireland fighting the COVID, there would have been lavish newspaper stories about them. Just think about that. The woke aspect. Say the Irish Times, which is obsessed with immigrants and immigration, and talk about like treating all immigrants as if they're wonderful. Well, if these foreign immigrants died in Irish hospitals fighting for Irish lives, why wasn't there 10 pages about them in the Irish Times or other papers talking about what incredible people they were? They would have bigged them up big time. But it's all, they died, it's not quickly put to one side. When they would have been the kind of perfect role model for the open borders immigration liberals in this country, why 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 did we not get more details beyond they were well respected by their colleagues? See, just and I'm hearing that in other countries too, that it seems to be like non-national doctors who are dropping out of COVID there. Are we on the? This is on the job ones now, not retired nurses or anything like that. Now they're in their 80s, and so I could be wrong about this, but I don't recall any others. It's a question I would like, put it this way, further clarification on. You see, because I don't think, as I think one of the reasons that the politicians and the bureaucrats and the healthcare and the media got away with this is that the citizenry are not demanding further clarifications. For instance, if they say so many people tested positive, uh, I don't want a number. I want specifics. I want the name of the testing station. I want the name of the officials who took care of the testing. Of course, you don't give the names out of people who tested positive. They can come forward if they want to, and again, anyone can pull a number out of their arse and say anything. And so there's been a lack of clarification on things. Now, as I said, I can forgive people in the early days for being frightened after for their families and their loved ones and their kids after seeing their friends and their elderly parents after what they saw the videos coming out of China, which again there was no clarification of, is that really there? Did it really take place there? We this whole thing of we trust the media that lies about everything else, and the situation, I could understand that, and then maybe I can't understand it, but I know there's such a thing as cognitive dissonance, and at the point where the doctors and nurses were dancing in doing complex dance routines, not just a quick, it's not just the TikTok videos where just someone holding a camera up to to like a nurse holding a camera up to a guy who works in the hospital, and he goes, and he doesn't dance with that and walks away to work. These were like complex routines that were practiced. And why did they practice them? Because they were bored off their fucking tits because the hospitals were empty. They were not full of bodies. Remember all these makeshift hospitals they built? That all the militaries. Remember the one in Dublin? Remember that was when I first. That was when I first. Like, what the hell is going on in Dublin, my hometown? They built a. The military built this makeshift field hospital to deal with the people in Dublin dropping dead in vast numbers, and to even stress that they had a battleship behind it. Now, why was the battleship behind it? It was all about like it was all propaganda, like, oh, we're at war and all this kind of, it's the classic thing, we're at war with this virus and so on. And again, people don't ask don't what fellas like me who ask for further classification are deemed conspiracy theorists. I mean, that's the old reliable. I'm kind of happy. Can we have more details, please? No, here's a picture of somebody holding a photograph of their daughter who had cystic fibrosis who died of the coronavirus. And even to say, can we have a breakdown of how many had pre-existing conditions, cancer, HIV, diabetes, uh, you know, anything really, or what their age brackets were they over 60, over 70, or under 20? Even asking for that, you were a conspiracy theorist. Now that shows you that it was a lie, because if they had nothing to hide, they would have said, here's the list, and say, just 38% died of coronavirus with no pre-existing conditions, and they were under 50, you know, The rest, some X-Men had cancer, X had, cystic fibrosis, HIV, and so on, the usual thing. But they wouldn't even give us that. We were just given a blank number. Here's how many how many there was, and here's how many died. Here's how many infection cases, and we were told initially that there was 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Now that 2 weeks to flatten the curve was really the moment that Western society gave them the hammer to hammer the nails in our coffin. Because how we reacted in that first 2 weeks was really set the barometer for what they were going to do afterwards. If people had have ignored it and didn't put up with it or were cynical about it, they would have not continued the way they have. We live in a world where I'm absolutely convinced most people are not even alive. They're just basically, as a friend of mine said, reincarnated farm animals. And they haven't stepped into consciousness for whatever reason. And the rest of us are just left in bewilderment, at this situation. But they really played on the whole. There's a definite correlation that the more educated you are in terms of your actual education level, whether it's what your degrees are, the more likely you're to fall for propaganda. That's been shown time and time again. And but even the working class who are normally cynical, and even the poor, not even the working class who are normally cynical, fell for this and stayed at home terrified. And we're not bothered by it because for so many people, this actually brought meaning to their lives. It brought something to their lives that was previously missing. And this was the data model that the establishment really wanted. They wanted to gauge the fortitude of the population in terms of its ability to psychologically resist propaganda. And the population of the West folded like a cheap camera. And that gave them the mandate to where we are now. So to flatten the curve of 2 weeks became this, that, and the other, moving on to the next thing. Okay, for instance, I'll give you an example of and everything moves in such a way that they have previously erased their previous propaganda. Now here in Ireland, the guy who was the COVID czar was a health official who had been previously involved in a scandal involving cervical smears that were incorrectly done and led to the deaths of several women by cervical cancer. And even with that failure, he was still given the job as the COVID czar. And when the initial hype and lockdown was over, they gave him the free man of the city of Dublin. Now, to get the free man of the city of Dublin, you need to be somebody who's really been exceptional. So they've given it to people like Nelson Mandela. They've given it to people like Bono, and they've given it to people who have achieved massively in their lives. Well, this guy who bumbled his way back into bureaucracy after his civil service catastrophe, after his cervical smear catastrophe, they give him the free man of Dublin. But we're told now infection rates are even higher, so they're going to take it back off him. No, the whole thing was designed by him and his friends, the same people who went to the golfing gala in Ireland, the height of the lockdown, 81 politicians and bureaucrats, including a Supreme High Court judge and a EU commissioner. They gave that to him as a gift. They said, here's your rehabilitation. Here is your redemption, your road to Damascus. Pretend to be the hero of C-19 and we'll give you the free man in Dublin, and all the morons out there will all think you're wonderful and forget about the cervical cancer thing. So, the way, there's an expression we use in Ireland, jobs for the boys. Politicians look after their friends. This is redemption for the boys. That's what that was all about. They used it as an excuse to get this guy off the hook from his incompetence with the cervical smears in the past. And this is what we're finding more and more with the Rona thing, is that it's being used to tighten up and to streamline corporate policy. I'll give you an example. I was talking to a friend of mine who works in the hotel business, and the big chain hotels like the Hilton's, Doubletree, Premier Inn, the staff are not going in at the moment to clean the hotel room, to do the linens and stuff like that, because of the COVID. You have to put the towels that you use to wash your arse and stuff like that out in the hallway and you have to put the old coffee cups and whatever you had anything to eat in here, put them outside as well. Now, will that be removed? I doubt it. You see that all of a sudden we have a situation that improves what the old-fashioned thing of the old businesses of efficiency. Remember that you must have efficiency in a business. Do you, that's to improve throughput from end process to end process. So now they've cut out on they now can speed up getting your hotel room ready instead of room service coming in and cleaning it up while you're out. Say if you're staying more than one night, room service just picks it up and throws it into the bin down to the laundry and throws. And you don't have to come in, so therefore they can clean lots of rooms much faster with less staff. You see, already the vultures are now understanding the Rona thing can actually be used to streamline everything except government. They're hiring like crazy still for civil servants and stuff, bureaucrats and stuff like that, and making sure they're getting their big pay raises. But there's like one example, and you'll see that with lots of other things. For instance, like you only go to Lidl, and there'll be like six tills there, and two of them are open, and you're having to wait for ages. It's just how Lidl do things for some reason. Well, that's be the norm now because of the social distancing thing. Now they can hire less checkout people at shops. And of course, that'll just all speed along the instant checkout thing that people just get me out of here now. Because they've made shopping a horrible, depressing experience. And also, and then half of that is to do with the things like when you walk into a shop and you come in 4 millimeters too close of 2 meters to someone and she goes, "Oh," that kind of thing. It's fundamentally changes as a people. We see not me, but I'm talking about the normies. We see our fellow citizens as a danger to us and our families. And now I said okay, then we're in the world of cognitive dissonance. They saw the TikTok dancers, and they saw all that, and nobody knows nobody who's died of this thing. Yeah, of course some do, but in general, nobody knows. If it's as bad as it is, we've all should have had 4 or 5 people. Remember, health officials were saying to us at the beginning, no family in any country in the West will escape not having at least one household member dying of COVID-19. And yet, no one's dead. And the nations of Sweden and Belarus are still alive. Now, then we're in the world of cognitive dissonance, okay? You don't forgive them for that, but you say, that's what's going on, the cognitive dissonance. Now with the latest lockdowns that we have in England, which are draconian, and when I say draconian, that's nothing to do with David Icke's lizards, for you truthers out there. Draconian means intense and strict and catastrophic almost. And the draconian thing, these draconian legislations that come in regarding the connectivity of family gatherings is a very sinister one, because we're now into the direct destruction of the family, the direct destruction of the interconnection of the family unit, which is great for the paedophiles in government who want like 9-year-old boys to have sex with 40-year-old men and marry them and things like that. The cultural Marxists want to complete the destruction of the society from the top to the bottom. This is a spiritual battle. Okay, make no. It's not to do with your rosary beads and stuff if you're a Catholic and your Bible if you're a Protestant. This is a spiritual battle at the fundamental level. Let's take the face mask, for example. The face mask. I haven't really spoken about the cult elements of this, but they're very strong. You put the mask here like this, like that, right? Okay. What do you see? The eyes, okay? Now the eyes, if you look at things like masquerade balls that were done, famous like Venice masquerade balls, and they were all done all over the world. The mask ball was done in such a way it gave you confidence. So if you weren't that good looking and you saw a girl that might be beautiful behind a mask, the idea was you were to learn their personality. And to learn, so you'd walk over and you'd flirt with some girl, maybe dance with her, and then you say, she's really cool. And then she's probably wearing a sexy dress and a nice figure, and you're saying she must be a knockout. And then you see her later without the mask, and she's an okay looking girl, but she's certainly not the Sophie Loren that you felt she was when you're talking to her. But her personality has won you. And you all know that, you all know the old story that if you like someone at the person, someone who's a good personality, they start looking more beautiful to you, and someone who doesn't have, has an ugly personality starts looking ugly to you. And so that barrier of the initial thing of the initial judgment of a person, that's what the purpose of the masquerade ball was. But the mask was up here like that, right? You see that? You see how? Like I'll do this. I'll do this for you, right? This is the mask here, like the masquerade ball, right? You see how interesting that is? Like imagine that was like a Venetian mask. See my eyes? You see that there's a sign of a my eyes have a kind of a a gravitas about them. Okay, and especially if the girl can wear the right mask that has the like sexy eye makeup and stuff, and the man can kind of Zorro-y, right? The mouth is still exposed, right? So when you're talking, you see the mouth. Okay, when it's here like this, that's muscled. Okay, that's a muscle. That's what you put on a dog to stop you from biting someone. And when you talk, you notice that? Like if I have this here and I talk, look at the amount of facial muscles on my face that you're seeing. See that? The amount of facial muscles are operating. Now, this is a face mask. Watch the number of facial muscles while I'm talking. See my point? The animated aspects of your personality are gone. So you're very much dehumanized, very much dehumanized. Plus the fact that you can't get close to a person where they can't sense your body energy when they do things like they talk and maybe gesture with their hands. No, their hands are held down because they might throw the virus on top of you, and this kind of thing. These are very sick. Look, I'll be straightforward with you now. If you still believe that there's a COVID-19 pandemic, we really do believe a COVID-19 pandemic right now. Not that there's a COVID-19 virus, there's a COVID-19 pandemic right now. You're a fucking idiot. It's as simple as that. And I've no respect for you. None. And you deserve to live as a caged animal for the rest of your existence. That's not why I really hate you. Why I really hate you is the world that you're leaving for your children and the next generation. Because basically you've done to them what you've transported them like criminals into, like the old days when they used to transport criminals to Australia. You have transported your own children, and if you don't have children, the next generation, into a penal colony. That's what you've done. A penal colony with social distancing, restaurants being destroyed because you don't want you mixing together. They want you sitting at home in the digital penal colony. And if you say, "Look, I don't want to do that," conspiracy theorist. And now like when I said the Irish Times had the most disgraceful article in the history of Irish journalism last week, when were talking about when they were basically saying that a woman who wants to open her coffee shop but you can't because it's so small that you can't do the proper COVID-19 things, and just wants to get a thing back. She is a right winger and she does Hitler salutes and all this kind of thing, and she's a skinhead. And that was the article. Now, of course, anyone with an ounce of sense would laugh at that. It was the same day that there was the press release was obviously sent by central government to the copy and paste. There's no journal. There's a copy and there's journalists are people like Dave Cullen and John Waters, but there's very few. Fuck all journalists out there, and the the copy and paste press release from the government all went out the same day. Everyone's a Nazi except who doesn't believe in who wants their freedom and their rights back. And you see this is our version of the year zero under the Khmer Rouge. This is it, and Pol Pot. This is it. A reset in every way, and they're going to get all. Now I've been talking about this for fucking months now, so you should be listening to it. But I'm not giving up, and I'll tell you why. Because one, if you're watching this video, congratulations, you're not a meat golem, you're not an NPC. You've got a soul and a spirit and a spark. Okay. Two, I would just be like the travelers, fly under the legal radar as much as you can. That's like something that's something I would definitely tell the people. When I say legal, I mean what the government wants from you, what society wants from you. Just get away with what you can get away with, and they don't care about you. You're just a farm animal to them at this point. I would definitely tell parents, if you've got kids, say to them, look, I know you're dealing with this, but then explain to them what I'm telling you in these videos in whatever way you feel is right to communicate to your child or your kids. Okay, but don't tell them to go to school and go, my daddy says that there's no. Just tell them to play the game, and we'll teach you another way to live. There's another way the way we grew up, and that will work, and we can rebuild this parallel society with not just for us, the ones who know it's a load of bollocks, but we can rebuild this parallel society and grow it for the next generation, if we have the savvy to do it. Now, this is I have people still saying to me, "What about the vaccine?" Look, they're not going to give you the vaccine. They're not going to hold you down and give you the C-19 vaccine. And chances are, if they do have a vaccine, it's water. It'll be a placebo, or some other fucking shite they couldn't sell for some other thing else. They just repackage it, and it won't work. And secondly, if you don't look, if you still think that the human race can be woken up, you're as stupid as the ones who still think there's a pandemic. Look around you, look what's out there. They won't wake up. But once you're woke up, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Then you can start helping your children, and you're just, and this kind of thing to get on with your life, and live by example. Of all I see around me right now are glum faces. Even if you have to wear a mask, you can be like, shoot fire that charisma outside your body energy. Be jolly and that kind of thing. And as soon as you come out of place, take the mask down. And there's lots of ways of helping people. Without the worst thing you can do is do the truther thing in your arms, waving it around, going, "Oh, it's start doing the 9/11. Oh, God. No, it's a new mask." You don't do that, okay? That drives all people away. There's loads of hope for you. You see, one of the reasons, this is why I'm so anti-Christian, because Christianity has put a false idea into people's heads of a day of judgment. So that means that these criminals in charge, are all going to sit in a dock. It's never going to happen. It never happened with JFK, never happened with 9/11. It's not going to happen with this, okay? And also the belief that there will be a return of a God who will save us, the redemption of Jesus coming. No, it's not coming. Nothing like that is happening. Okay, the only thing it's not going to happen, and this is why this is what creates this evangelical need to tell people there is no C-19. 9/11 is as dodgy as fuck and all this stuff, right? This is an evangelical drive put into you by Christianity. Okay, remember, you're a European. You're not Christian. Your ancestry is not from the Middle East, so you don't have to act like you don't have to believe that shit. Okay. Now, I'm not putting down Christians. That's your own business and your own religion, not anyone's religion. But this is the important thing. This is like build a parallel society, and like there's this kind of like Socratic method. I like this Socratic method that if the control system is left wing, which it is extremely, well, then hit it with a kind of a right wing way, and without being a right wing person, So it's like a contradictory question to what happened previously. The classic Socratic method, and that's a very powerful way of now. If you're talking to somebody, here's someone like that, and you say, "Oh Jesus, did you hear? Did you hear? Oh Jesus, there was a 50 million.4 infections of COVID-19 just a day," and this guy. Don't believe that shit. What do you mean you don't believe that shit? Doesn't make any sense. If the mask works, why are there 5 million things? But and then you leave it. Don't be having an argument. They want you arguing. Just if there was that just, and you can be joking about it like that the mask is the COVID-19, what the rhythm method is to Catholics. It doesn't work. Obviously, just using they're sort of telling us to wear a mask, but the infection rate goes up. So why is they wearing a mask? But they can't answer that. Now there are lots of lunatics out there who will. And the more educated with their PhDs, the more mentally ill they will be, because they're vanguards of the system that has put them up there. Don't worry about it, okay? Now, the restrictions in England are talking about 6 months. They put a cordon around the working class. This is very much you see, the Rona thing is cringingly working class, cringingly middle class. Soccer mums with their fashionable mask, yuppies and hipsters with their glass shields, and all that crap, and it's cringingly middle class, and that's why they put a cordon around the working class areas. 900,000 people in Madrid, and that's why they locked people in council tower blocks in Melbourne. They know the working class are the ones who'll go, fuck this shit. I can't live like this anymore, and that's why that's a fear. That's a fear of the uprising. The middle class will never revolt, ever. They won't, because no matter what you take from them, they'll still be like, yes, sir, yes, government, whatever you say. I'm going to, like the classic thing of like, I'm going to vote them out in the next election. And voting like in Ireland here, all the main parties are all in agreement to this stuff. So who are you going to vote for? The imagination fairy leprechaun party doesn't exist. That's the middle class for you. I will vote. I will make my constitutional vote work by voting for the same fucker who do the same thing. We have to give up on this. It's like I was talking to a friend recently about like the only political system I want to believe in is one where I don't know the name of the politicians and they're just purely managers who are hired to like run the country with no philosophical mandate, and that's the end of that. They're out. They've already done the damage to us as a human. They meet golems. Look, I can tell you from the beginning, this is the greatest education that you'll ever get, because you now see around you who are the fucking lugs, or the dead weight, and the people that are no use to your evolution and where you want to go in this life, okay? Because they believe everything the government fucking tells them and still believe in them. It's also the greatest spiritual experience you ever had, because I'm finding the people who haven't fallen for it, I'm having beautiful philosophical and spiritual conversations with them. My Facebook page has some beautiful comments. I would start a thing about about it, and then the comments go down, and they're increasingly spiritual in the sense that they're all about, I want the spirit of me to survive this. I want the spirit of my family to survive this. I want to be able to live as an artist again because of this. I want to be able to express my music again. The music industry has been absolutely devastated. You see, here's one of the things about the music industry. Just because someone may have had a couple of hits in the 80s or 90s doesn't mean they're loaded now. That they might have had a very big, a shitty record contract, which most do, where those hits only paid off the loan that was given for them for recording the album. And since then, they've been touring acts who've been making an okay living, but they wouldn't be rich or anything. That's why, any of us bump into like 80s rock stars and stuff. They're living in a regular 3-bedroom house or apartment. They're not loaded because they're just gigging. They've taken that from them. Those people have known that nothing. You say like, those people have known nothing else. They can't play now. And also the people attached to that, roadies, sound engineers, the lot. People who work as waitresses and waiters in rock clubs. The music industry has been destroyed. The entertainment industry as a whole has been destroyed. But they're non-vital. I would argue they're actually quite vital. And so the next thing will be, I'm good at predictions. There's loads of videos that I've made of predictions leading up to this that have all come true. My next one is that, and this was the main reason I was against fluoride in the drinking water. I don't know, I remember about 10 years ago, Adrian Murphy from the Irish Times was writing brilliant articles, inspired by Aisling Fitzgibbon, the girl against fluoride, about fluoridation of the water supply. And she got me interviewed for Hot Press magazine, quite a favourite interview, where I was talking about it's a psychopathic thing to want to interfere with somebody's water supply, because it's ultimately about controlling them and not about public health. And I've been against the fluoridization of water Not because I believe it destroys your pineal gland or bullshit like that, or it makes you stupid. I've been drinking fluoridated water all my life, and I don't think I'm stupid. I think I'm just against it because it puts a precedence in there for governments to medicate you. And I think, here's my prediction. Watch out for this one. As the furloughs are ending and the pandemic unemployment pay are ending, we will really see the ramping up of the suicides and the social breakdown. You're going to have health officials then saying, let's put lithium in the drinking water. They've been wanting, this is the one they haven't done yet. You know, all you types who think they're going, this is the one they got, let's put lithium in the drinking water. And they'll even have water called L plus and stuff like this. This is what they're going to go. This is how they're going to try and deal with the collapse of society by mass medicating the population. They might do it through psych meds, easier access to psych meds, but this is how they'll really do it. And you will see that as the pandemic payments decrease, 350 a week in Ireland, 325, 300, 275. The talk about maybe we need psychiatric services better funded. Maybe we need to give better access to psych meds. Maybe we should have care in the community for psychiatric help. Maybe we should put lithium in the water. Maybe we should put lithium in the water. Maybe we should put lithium in the water. You mark my words, that's what they're going to try and do next. And that's why I've always been against fluoridation of the water. Not because I think it's, IG Farm and just nonsense that it was put in concentration camps. None of that was true. The reason why I was always against it is it sets a precedence for medicating the population against their will by government. Once the fluoride was in there, the lithium, it was only a matter of time for the lithium was going to be next. And again, there's ways around that. But you're going to see that they're going to, there's no hope. And then at the same time, when it's really getting bad, all the senior politicians, all the ones in government right now, will all be going, it's time for me to leave and spend time with my family. And this is the rat sinking the ship. And then the technocratic aspects will be brought in further. But however, I don't have them right now. You know me, I'm always a great believer in the triumph of nature. I was walking around today picking up conkers. Now, you don't know what a conker is. A conker is a chestnut, a horse chestnut. And they're all falling out of the trees right now. And they're one of those beautiful things, they're shiny and polished, and they're a beautiful thing to look at. And when we were kids, we used to put a string through them, a knot in the end, and play conkers. And you would try and break your other friend's chestnut. And everything I learned about life, I learned about conkers. And so if I wrote a biography, I'd play that. You could find so much happiness and satisfaction in a chestnut that fell off a tree and a piece of string. We used to wait all summer and count down the dates before we went to Santry Woods in just north of Ballymun, and we'd say, Conquers next month, Conquers next month. It wasn't, and we didn't have the new Nintendo. I'm not trying to sound like one of these old fucks who goes, when I was a young boy, but it really was like that. But the conqueror could be used to, the more conquerors you killed with your conqueror became like a gladiator. And so you could have a 1Z, he killed 1, a 2Z, he killed 2, a 3Z, he killed 3, a 4Z, a 5Z. Some kids had conquerors who'd go to 10, 9, 10. And then when your conqueror was destroyed, you were like, oh shit, my conqueror's destroyed. And then you had little fuckers who would like, these would be the future politicians who would do things like they get super glue and put it on a syringe and inject it into the conqueror. And so the conqueror couldn't break apart because it was full of glue. But you'd also have a conqueror that it only counted if the conqueror completely left the string. And you might win a battle if you had a half a conqueror or a conqueror with all its shell broken off, and he was still a fucking fighter. You learned about the fighter that still existed, and then, and a piece of a fucking wild nut with a string through it. That was the greatest thing ever, the greatest thing ever. Okay, And every single year of my life since then, I see the conkers on the ground at this time of year, and I think about the magic of those times. I see the brown of the leaves in the trees, and I see the beautiful autumnal season coming in. It comes back, okay? Always be that kid who played the conkers. Always keep the song in your heart that gave you that joy, and then pass that magic on to the next generation. They can't do nothing about that. Nothing. And their obsolescence will be their inability to be creative. And I also do believe, and you can laugh at me, but there's something going to happen at the spiritual or greater level that's going to stop this. There's going to be a natural or a spiritual intervention that will end all this. And remember, like, all it would take would be for, you see, look, here's an example, right? What, what COVID-19 is the greatest disease ever in history because it ended terrorism and it ended war. Where's all the war? Where's all the terrorism? Where the fuck is all the terrorism? Do Islamic suicide bombers are they worried about being asymptomatic when they go to blow up a fucking shopping centre? Where's it gone? Could it be that the same people are all behind COVID-19 are also behind the terrorism? To say, where's war gone? Where's war gone? The news is nothing but COVID-19. There will be an event, I can feel it in my heart, that will push that out of the news. It'll derail their plans and bring us back to normal. You just watch, I can feel it. I felt it from the beginning. I wouldn't have made these videos if I didn't feel it. Because I have. Because those, it's like when I was a kid, you could play conkers, but your conkers getting to 4 or 5s, smashing 4 or 5 conkers, it gave you the confidence to do lots of things, even though it was mostly a game of chance in many ways. You can't look at a conker and say, oh, this one is structurally more sound than this one. You couldn't do that. You felt there was an element of luck on your side. Joseph Campbell spoke about this. Carl Jung spoke about this. That yes, there's fate. Yes, there's chance. But all my life I felt the power. And all you, I'm sure, felt this too. Well, call it your daemon, call it your guardian angel. But that the hidden hand in the background that made you turn that corner, that changed your life for the better, just for some reason. And I think that hand has still been played by the universe. So between now and then, keep the song in your heart, educate the kids about the better world that was and what will return in Europe. We're not. You see, remember, we're not waking people up here now. We're looking after ourselves. This is the tribe. We've now established that we have a tribe. Okay, and that's the issue now? The security and the health of the tribe. So fuck the rest of them. Okay, we're back to the tribes, and it'll be okay in the end. It'll be fine, and it's evil what they're doing now. Boris Johnson is an evil, evil man, pure evil, and all our politicians in Ireland are pure evil. If any of them had an ounce of decency to stand up and say it's bollocks, but they won't because they don't respect, like, or give a shit about you enough to actually believe they are. Just because you're living in a police state, like the old analogy, right? Just because you're born in a barn doesn't mean you're a horse. Just because you live in a police station doesn't mean you're a prisoner. Take care. Love you. Bye.